Well, ooh, this fell off. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. What's that? Thank you. It is so nice to be back with you here today at Brooklyn Ethical and to see the new space. I'm really touched that you invited me to speak about my new novel, Donnaville. I also want to thank Dupre and Barry for doing these songs. I can't tell you how much I am loving it. That Farron song, It Won't Take Long, is about the revolution. I think you guys did an amazing job. And it's always nice to have Johnny Cash find his way into ethical culture, which doesn't usually happen. That's in reference to keeping a watch on this heart of ours, because we're made of a lot of good and bad things together, and we can and do hurt others. So that's what that is about, as you will see. Okay, so, all right, this is the obligatory. This is my novel, Donnaville, with a lovely map on the top, which is on the front, which is by the artist and poet Brendan Lorber. Okay, so a lot of us are wondering right now exactly what relationship our government has to our psyches. This is because our government obviously is about to take a major turn for the worse. What does living in a particular society that takes care of people or doesn't take care of its people in particular ways, what impact does that have on our psyches? And living in a society that has a particular kind of criminal justice system in which enormous numbers of people are in prison, what impact does that have on our psyches? Fannie Lou Hamer's statement that none of us are free until all of us are free means, among other things, that those of us who are not currently subject to state violence are kept in check by the fear that the same kind of violence can be visited on us. So it definitely has an impact whether our society is the regular old oppressive society that we're used to living in, or the even more oppressive society we fear we'll be living in soon. So I have always kind of been taken by the metaphor of the mind as a city, or maybe a city-state with its own government. Ever since when I was a teenager, I read this old poem by Delmore Schwartz that starts like this: "The mind is a city like London, smoky and populous. It is a capital like Rome, ruined and eternal, marked by the monuments which no one now remembers. For the mind, like Rome, contains catacombs, aqueducts, amphitheaters, palaces." For me, it wasn't the architecture I was wondering about so much as what the government would be like if my mind were a city, what the systems of care would be like. To be honest, I suspected that the systems of care might not be very good, based on what I know of my mind. And would it be a beautiful place, the city, or a horrible one? Maybe it would be both, as our current world and our current society are. Some of how I first started writing this novel was that I had begun to see that the kind of psychotherapy I had been engaged in for 20 years was not actually supporting me. And I began to wonder why I had chosen to stay with a therapist who continually made me feel worse rather than better. And I'll read to you from a preliminary section of the book that talks about this. All right. "There's a room I've been coming to for 20 years. I hate this tiny, blandly decorated room, yet I pay an enormous amount of money to enter it each week like a professional dungeon. The room belongs to my therapist, Robin. Sorry, Robin, not you. My therapist, Robin, a dry little woman with ditzy floral clothing and a cold, sharp gaze. Her expression never warms to me, no matter how many years we look at each other, no matter how many intimate bits of myself I provide her to feed on, no matter how hard I try to make her like me. She says she is not here to encourage me or help me see my strengths. That's not my role, she says, sounding like the voice of God. Instead, she says, her job is to hold up a mirror to the places where I'm weak and wrong. How long have you been coming to me, Donna? She often asks, like an exacting schoolmaster. Me, variously. 5 years, 9 years, 11 years, 19 years. Then why are you still doing X bad thing? It's always the same bleak morning in the therapy room, and I have never learned what Robin is angrily, dourly trying to teach me, that the world is a hard place, that my optimism is misplaced, my confidence unwarranted. Robin does not countenance tomfoolery. When I finally get up the nerve to tell her I wish our sessions were a little more playful, she frowns at me in distaste. Therapy isn't play, it's hard work. She hates when I claim power or act as though I can get anything, simply anything, without moving through a sea of pain. When I realize for the first time in a lifetime that I don't have to do anything I don't want to and share this liberating insight with her, she just sneers, "Yes, you do." Beyond discipline, Robin wants me to learn normality, not in my sexual preferences. She doesn't care about that. No, she wants me to be normal in my brain, in how I use language, the kinds of things I say to her. She is distrustful of symbols, myth, metaphor, which are my mother tongue. My therapist always makes me translate myself into a bald, practical American idiom that admits of no nuance or double meanings. In the end, the only phrases I'm allowed to share with her are stripped, flat, mechanical ones, the antithesis of the way I normally speak. Multiple choice, angry, afraid, sad, hurt, or happy, and I have to pick one, only one. Robin doesn't like complications or words that mean more than one thing. Nor will she tolerate my saying I'm afraid unless I can specify exactly what it is I'm afraid of. All subjects have predicates in Robin's therapy room. For her, psychotherapy has an iron grammar that must be respected. As a result, many times I am scared, but unable to share it with her and be comforted. Not that Robin believes in comforting anyhow. That's not my role. Finally, I have enough of giving up one whole day each week to commute into New York City so that Robin can erode my hopes and smother all my laughter. Something needs to change. I can't believe I have given 20 years of my life and thousands of dollars to a woman who always makes me feel illogical, freaky, and wrong. I begin exploring my internal landscape, which I have always guessed is wilder, more beautiful, and bigger than my therapist told me. Whoops. There must be a dank prison in there, true. But there is also a shimmery rose fluttering from within a cunningly elaborate bramble. There is a lush greenway along a river that produces toothsome oysters and succulent herring that may or may not be safe to eat. There are sprawling factories to the south that fire up metals at excitingly high temperatures. I'm just going to skip a little bit. There are a fair number of blocks with blown out windows, but the city is green and there are mountains you can see from almost every street. The factories pollute the air, but Donnaville is situated in such rural environs that the air usually smells sweet. The wind from the mountains blows away the scent of butanoic acid, sulfur, and sodium bromide, except on a few days a year. There is a lake. There are sexy tourists who come to see the nature and buy toys from the boutiques in the glorious gentrified sections. There are rich residents and upper middle class residents who try not to see what goes on with all the others. There's not much I can say about the prison except that you don't want to be there. And I'll stop there. So that is the only part of the book that is straight up memoir-y. The rest takes us right into the city and the characters. And for some more flavor of what it's actually like living in Donnaville, I would like to introduce you to a couple of the characters. The first is the jailer of Donnaville, because there is a prison. I don't know if any of you have your maps. There's maps at the front. Oh no, I don't. Well, yes, I would love one. I should have taken one to refer to. Oh, thank you. All right. So, you'll see the prison is right in the center of town, and it's shaped like a heart. All right. So when I left the therapist that I was telling you about, I started doing this new kind of therapy called drama therapy. And it's part of a newish movement in therapy some of you may have heard of called parts work. There's a thing called internal family systems that's goes along that, you know, is one version of parts work. Anyway, some of you may have heard of this. One of the points of parts work is that each of us contains multitudes. We each contain a multiplicity of contradictory feelings and desires and stances, and sometimes they're really working at cross purposes with each other. For me, in the book, they're fighting each other in the effort to take care of me. They're all, I mean, some of the thought of parts work is that all parts are trying to take care of you. Some of them just try to do it in ways that are not particularly helpful. But anyway, in the book, they're fighting each other because they each think Donna needs different things. So the first person that came to me in drama therapy was a person in a dungeon. So this is rather heartbreaking, but I knew there was a person in a dungeon inside me being imprisoned and being hurt by someone who thought it was all for Donna's good. So I could see there were two people there, a jailer and a person in the dungeon. And the one in the dungeon wound up being a character in the book called a child. She's a little girl, 8 years old. So they were the first two characters, the jailer and the child. Then very quickly there came to me this character called the Harlequin, who's the jailer's opposite. He is a very sexy and beautiful gay man, kind of a Dionysian trickster figure. And he doesn't have anything to fear from the jailer because he's completely invisible to him. He feels no pain at all, whereas the jailer feels all the pain in the city. And the only time the jailer does not feel pain is when he's administering pain to someone else. The Harlequin has an altruistic side. He helps people in the jail temporarily escape with only their minds by sending them into these mental orbits of pleasure, but it's all very temporary, and when they wake up, they're still in the prison, so it's not very effective. So these two, the jailer and the Harlequin, are two sides of the same kind. I'm sorry, they are two sides of the same coin, and in fact, they turn out to be brothers. One thinks the only way to take care of people is by making them feel pain and castigating and correcting them. The other thinks the only way to take care of people is by making them feel nothing, feel no pain, just be taken away from all the problems. And neither of them is doing a very good job. And I will read to you from some of the introductory sections for the Harlequin and the jailer. All right, this is the Harlequin in the first person. Okay. I live on the outskirts of our city, so I come walking in from the mountains to the lovely entertainment district where the ice cream shop is and the special fish taco store. The ice cream is creamy. I haven't had it in forever. The jailer has never gotten any, poor thing. Giacomo makes me one with strawberries and bits of hazelnut. I slurp at it and dreamily make eyes at the tourists. I want a fish taco for later, too. I haven't been so hungry in as long as I can remember. There's a cute tourist dude in striped red seersucker pants and a little black watch cap. He walks a few feet ahead and looks back at me. I beckon to the alley, but he shakes his head and his little butt at the same time. Let's go get an espresso, he says. Nah, I'm hungry, and I steer him into the fish taco joint. The smells coming from it have been making my mouth water, even when I was still eating ice cream. The boy gets fried grouper, and I get fresh lobster. I have no need of money once anyone looks at my face, and I can buy out the store for us. I hook the two of us up with sparkling wine as well in paper cups. I haven't seen you around before, he says. I'm a homebody, I lie. His body smells sweet and acrid like the grouper. I'm with a tour for Caspia. We live on the sea. I grew up on a red houseboat, and he has come forward to show me pictures. He wants to connect. Fuck that shit for real, but he just smells so damn good. Maybe I can crush the fish bits on him and squeeze a giant lime over his whole body. There are pickled onions, too, on the taco. I want to snatch a few and drop them on his head. Stop talking. Maybe I can just pour the Spanish bubbly over both of us? you don't seem very interested in this. And oh shit, he's offended. Oh no, he's getting up. Oh, please, no, I just got distracted for a minute. Tell me about your houseboat. Do you live on one now as well? And now he's showing me more pictures on his phone. He lives in a pink-orange boat with 7 mates. Must be a really stinko bathroom in there. Gay men as punctilious housekeepers are way overhyped. Oh no, now he wants to know about my living situation. I try to smile, but all I want is to open those little stripy pants and shuck them from him like a peel from a banana. Well, I live in this large nut. It's like a cool black sphere, I guess, sort of hippie accommodations, but I know a lot of other places to go, and I try to grin my most radiant and even warmest grin at him. I can do warm. Oh no, now he really likes me. He looks at my eyes with his very brown ones. He's going to ask me to be his boyfriend next. He puts his arm around me, and now I can smell the cologne with rum and cloves that they make down in Upper Caspia. Let's go on a very long walk, he says. He thinks winningly. Okay, and here is a little of the jailer in the first person. Oh yes, I have always wanted to bake, not just bread, but cakes, things that could delight me and my mother, things that if you set them on the table could delight neighbors and all sorts of people you might meet, make them like me for once. My mother's friend made this cake with honey caramelized almonds on top. She served it to us with tea in a little china set. I haven't really made anyone tea before this lady now. This lady is the Divine Mother who has come to visit the jailer, and he's made her tea. Okay. That was so nice, and it made me remember how I used to like women. So long ago, when I was quite young, it was always my favorite pastime when my mother took me over to other women's houses so they could have coffee, and I would play on the floor. I would look at their legs under the table, blushing bright. They seemed quite alive, and their conversation so vivid as well. Men didn't talk that way. Magna, that's the Divine Mother. Magna is lovely. No one so nice has ever been in my rooms, it is sad to say. She's like a tall rose. I longed for women when I was younger too, and of course I also pined for men, but I haven't longed for anyone in that way in so many years, other than those paler, barer itchings to cut into people or make them wish they died before they ever came to me. So that's the jailer. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the map. If you will look at your maps. So another important element in the book is that there's haves and have-nots in Donna's city. If you look at the map, you can see in the upper right corner, there's a gentrified neighborhood, and there's some slums, and they're right around something called Prospect Park, which did make it into the map. I wonder where I got that from. There's a greenway along the river, which is lovely with a residential neighborhood. And there's a very nice tourist and entertainment district, but there's also a tent city of the unhoused, very close to there. So there's all kinds of things in this city. Beautiful things and horrible things, and people who don't know where their next meal is coming from, and people who live in very nice houses. Okay, and I mentioned the prison, but the people in the gentrified neighborhood in Donna's head, or maybe the tourists who are having a good time in the entertainment district, they're not concerned at all about the unhoused people or the people who live in slums or the people who are in the prison. They are hardly aware they exist. So for many of us, there might be parts that get lots and lots of goodies from the ruling part of ourselves. We think they're worth it. I mean, to go back to that Ursula Le Guin quote, we think they're deserving. They get fed, they get what they need, but other parts of ourselves may not get what they need at all. They get ignored, or they get starved or disciplined, or even actively hurt by the ruling part. Now, of course, there's a logic to this. As I mentioned, in drama therapy, all parts have a good reason to do what they do. They think that that's the way to take care of the person, to take care of me or of you. They think that by clamping down on or even torturing or starving the have-not parts, the person will be safer or better. which is unfortunate, but maybe some of you can relate. Okay. So why isn't Donna getting good care? Well, in the book, it's a lot because she's cut off from her own internal resources that would otherwise be providing care, from external resources as well. She's suspicious and frightened of them, of nurturing in general, as many of us are, and I'll tell you a little bit about how that process works. There's this character I mentioned called the Divine Mother. I describe her as part goddess, part memory of just the good parts of my own actual mother. And she exists both within Donna and outside her, which is in keeping with the way I see holiness or divinity as something that exists in me and also exists outside of me. Okay, but at the beginning of the book, a lot of Donnaville, I'd say most of Donnaville, is closed off to the Divine Mother because Donna has been terrified of her. And the Divine Mother, although she is good, has also been rather self-involved and negligent, and so has allowed a lot of awful stuff to go on in Donnaville for years. I'm going to read to you from that section, but just a quick note about the theology in Donnaville. It was very important to me to have a divine figure who is not omnipotent and not entirely good, because that's not one that I see. So she is good and she is very powerful, but there's a bunch of things she can't do, and there's things she does wrong. She makes mistakes, she hurts people. Because one thing I have always thought about theology, I dislike the idea that in many religions, evil in the world is supposed to just be human beings' fault, our fault. Like, well, if you see a divinity, why isn't it also the divinity's fault? They set it up that way. So anyway, that's my effort to make a little more holistic religion, and Gnostic, in fact. It does have some things in common with Gnosticism, which the quote is from at the end. That being in the quotations who's saying all these contradictory things about themselves, that is a Gnostic divinity. One reason I love that text. Okay, so I'm going to read to you from this Divine Mother section. All right. Okay, so she's called the Divine Mother, but her actual name is Magna, which is short for Magna Mater, which was the ancient Romans' name for the great mother goddess. In the book, she's kind of a cross between Aphrodite and a kind of regular mother goddess. Okay. Magna is still in bed in the middle of the morning, looking down on Donnaville from the lovely fortress from which she flies down into Donna's city whenever she wishes. She luxuriates with a cup of coffee steamed in the Italian manner, laying her beautiful honey-colored curls back on the cushions. A coal-black sheep walking on its hind legs, one of the many animals that care for her, brings the goddess a sweet roll, butter, and honeycomb. No one has ever been able to make the Divine Mother feel ashamed about anything she takes into her body. She may have whatever she wants, whenever she wants it. She can also wake exactly when or if she feels like it, or else delight in the wildest and most unabashed dreams the world has known. However, although she adores indolence with a sweet, spicy, burning little passion, she also loves working. And strangely, Magna has just one thing in common with the jailer, her creation. She believes in duty. Therefore, although she needn't do anything by a specific time, a small sigh escapes her lips finally as she gets to her feet, opens the huge arched window across from her bed, and feeling a little foolish, gets into her special singing posture. She stands in a strong stance, her big feet planted, one slightly in front of the other, so her core muscles can support her lungs, her throat, her heart, and her voice when she begins crooning down into Donnaville. But most unlike her, she hasn't even begun her habitual chant when frustration overtakes her, and for a few seconds, she's so fucking grumpy she can't even open her mouth. Why is it always like this? She sings to Donna every single morning, and it never, ever works. Is she doing it wrong? Should she be singing something else? Should she be doing something else, not singing? She can normally do everything, so why can't she do this? Frowning slightly, she steps up to the open window, still alive with the most luscious sunlight, and begins her song. Down in Donnaville, 100 miles down from the nurturing mother's fortress in the sky, I, Donna, sit outside at a birdshit-laden plastic blue picnic table. I'm looking north toward the river and savagely but half-heartedly ripping wax out of my ears. It goes like this: rip, sigh and pause, rip, sigh and pause, sigh and pause. I don't mean to gross you out. It isn't earwax, medical name cerumen, I'm prying out of my lugs, but high-end, delicate beeswax. More than 50 years ago, I got hold of a large cake of the stuff, tore it into tiny bits, rolled them between my hands, heated and softened the bits before stuffing them in my very small attached ears. People are always surprised by how tiny my ears are, even as an adult. My body as a whole is small, but my ears are ultra petite. It's understandable I'm terrific at not hearing things that scare me. Of course, I also needed to put a thick coating of beeswax in there just to make sure. Still, I'm ambivalent, but the time has come. I'm sick of this shit. I deserve something better. I want a parent inside me who is warmly loving, whose greatest wish is to give me tender care. Not one who smacks me in the head and keeps smacking me. I want the nurturing mother to incarnate herself in me right now. Oh, come to me, goddess. I'm not exactly your type, I know, and Donnaville isn't exactly your temple, but please come here right now. Underneath this apple tree in my yard, we can listen to the creek together, glugging away in the background. So even though I'm not holding my breath for this to work, I sit at the table and scratch at the beeswax, layer by layer, bit by scented bit, and tear the stuff out of my ears that I wedged up in there years ago because it was so perilous to hear that molten gold voice. And I'm just going to take a sip of water. Yes. Okay. And here we go. All right. The goddess sings. Oh, my Donna, my darling, I want to rub your shoulders. Oh, lay down. Lay your head down on my breast. I want to feed you. I have the food right here, a tuna fish sandwich and a meatball one. And I have roses for you, so you will always know how wonderful you are. My delight, my little cookie, my bright animal, my brave girl full of fire. And I will spread around you all that you might ever have needed, all you might ever love, baby. By this point, I can smell her perfume and almost see the long silk scarf she wears, the color of saffron. She has almost incarnated here on the picnic table across from me, and as her form wavers in the noontime light, I feel drunk and terrified at the same time. Her satiny dress underneath the table barely touches my leg. I will never leave you, she says loudly, warm hand heavy on my shoulder. And I turn away, squinching my eyes toward the neighbor's house, and whisper very low inside my own head, please. Her nipple enters my mouth, bright red. It pops inside. I have never felt anything so heavenly, but what I mutter in the direction of the neighbor's house is, please, I cannot bear your betrayal. And I'll stop there. And now we go to the audience participation of this talk, the audience participation part of this talk, which of course is optional.